Welcome everybody to episode 3. Can we start that again? It's episode 317 of GI Joburg. My name is Steve. We're going to talk about new comic books today, plus a brand new segment. And if you are so inclined, right at the very end of the podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about, a cinematic event that's taken place not too long ago that the three of us have all three watched, called Dune Part 2. And we are dying to, just discuss what our opinions of this film was at this moment in filmmaking. I mean, if you really want to get highfalutin about it. But I'm not alone. I'm joined by my boys. It's Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul. How's it, Steve? Hello, everybody. How's it, Bigforth?
And Rob.
Hey, it's me. I'm back again. Wow, it's a track record now.
You're back. Back again.
How badly did I flounder that intro?
Beautiful. You feel like it's 2021 again, I guess. You know, you're back in the past.
Was that the idea? Was that the intention? That was the intention. You nailed it.
Thanks,
absolutely. This is perfect. I loved it.
But we are definitely going to get into the new comic book that came out last week. Duke issue 3 has hit the presses. We find out the fate of everybody's favorite first shirt of GI Joe, though he's not that just yet. And we've all seen Dune. We're going to take a look back in time and read an issue of GI Joe, A Real American Hero, the Larry Hama Marvel run. It's issue 12. 3 strikes for Snake Eyes.
If we even get there.
Plus, guys, I'm going to surprise you with a new segment. I see we have some live chats already.
Hell yeah.
Moonlight 47 is in attendance, as is Mark van Leeuwen, Ben Flying Retro, and Shane Brailer. Ben, I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Ben.
Happy UK Mother's Day.
So only the British celebrate their mothers.
I know, but either way, I hope it was a good celebration of all the mums on that island. Okay, so gents, I've held the mic long enough. Any matters that you're dying to get through before we start our show proper? No pressure.
Wow, so excited. We're both very much excited to just start talking about Dune.
No, I think something that needs to be just sort of addressed like right off the bat. It's kind of important, at least for me.
Serious
famous manga artist and manga creator Akira Toriyama has passed away at the ripe young age, should I say, of 68. It is a big thing because it's not just the guy that created Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is something that's made anime and manga. I would say was one of the biggest reasons why anime and manga became popular in the West.
Worldwide. For sure, dude. The first thing, I think probably the first one I saw was probably Dragon Ball. I think Dragon Ball was the first sort of like anime that I ever saw. I think probably even before Evangelion or the big one. What's that movie called?
Gundam.
Akira.
Akira.
I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of us come from a past where, we had things like the what do they call them? The Ronin Warriors, which was actually just Mazinger Z and all of that.
Yeah. Samurai Pizza Cats.
Samurai Pizza Cats, and we had Robotech, which was actually just Macross, Heidi, and all that. But those things never really. I mean, Robotech became a cultural phenomenon on itself, in and of itself. It wasn't really. It didn't make anime step to the forefront, but Dragon Ball really did bring it out, and the man was a genius. If you look at his body of work, which is more than just Dragon Ball,
Dragon Quest.
The art for Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger featured his artwork and character designs.
Absolutely huge. Something new coming out soon called Sandland or Sandland. I believe will be a video game and an anime coming out soon. And it's not like Dragon Ball stopped. I mean, it went on, for quite some time, and he even came back after the controversial Dragon Ball GT and kind of like said, this is actually where the story goes. It's called Dragon Ball Super. And there's a new one coming out soon as well, Dragon Ball Daima, which is taking all back to Chibi Land. Very interesting.
And then I think the last thing that I just want to mention here is that this guy's legacy was so like impactful that, you know, one of his understudies, one of his protege, well, it was his then protege, is now the guy who created One Piece. So, you know,
wow.
This is a creator that really gave to the world, and I do feel like we lost somebody cool, and I just wanted to put that up front in the episode because it's kind of important. It's super important to me, and I don't want us to end up on a down note later on. Sweet.
Let's start on a down note. But I mean, what a good note that came out this week. They revealed a lot more new miniseries for the. Yep, there we go. Ben Flying Retro is coming in strong with the Destro miniseries. And there's also a Scarlet miniseries coming out with Scarlet kind of like infiltrating some sort of Arashikage, I don't know, dinner event. At least that's what I got from the preview of the comic book. Gorgeous art on both comics. The Scarlet one's written by Kelly Thompson, who's done a couple of things. They've been quite good, I think, at DC and Marvel. Most recently, she's been doing the writing on Birds of Prey, a new series of that, which has been quite cool. Although it involves time travel, and I was a bit like the time travel element I wasn't interested in. But otherwise, very strong. Dan Waters is writing the Destro comic book. Not sure what else he's done.
The name is not a name that I know either, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, so far, Robert Kirkman, you know, he's been choosing very strong creative teams for these titles. I mean, if, you know, Duke and, well, okay, it's just kind of difficult to say Duke and Cobra are good at, you know, indicators of that, because it's both the same writer, but different artists. And the Transformers line as well, the comic book has been pretty strong. Yeah, so we'll soon we won't have any time for old comic books or old cartoons. All we're going to be talking about is this new comics.
I hope you put my issue aside, Rob. Speaking of, I just want to address this comment from Ben Flying Retro. Steve and myself are disappointed we didn't get a shipwreck mini. Please add me to that list as well. I would love a shipwreck miniseries.
Nah, Scoop's got to get his mini before you know, shipwreck. Come on, everyone's disappointed about that.
Yeah, I mean, we need it, but it's we need it. We want it. What do we really need it? But we want it. Moonlight coming in with I hope already some opinions here. I hope Scarlet doesn't run into some crazy rich Asian who will eventually become an Arashikage ninja in the comic. Well played.
Got to set that stuff up.
But well played. If you guys get the joke, you get the joke.
You don't. Welcome, Peter Moline. It's nice to see you in here again.
What's up, Peter?
I snuck through the door. We got Talking Joe in the house. Shane Brayley, Emmanuel Gossot. Moonlight, we've spoken of already, and G7M9W, I believe also on the continent of Europe. It is also Mother's Day. Well, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Day. Emmanuel Gossot.
Hi, Mark. Talking Joe, where is the skid marked mini? You know,
have you checked your drawers? Have you checked your pantaloons? You might find it there.
There might be a mini you're gonna get in there.
The closest you're gonna get to that right now is in the Tales from the Cobra. Tales, is it? I can't even remember. It's a novel. But they actually do have a skid mark story in that book. Yeah, and it actually plays a bit like a miniseries. Yeah.
Hell yeah. He deserves
anyway.
On the topic of some love for the idea of putting individual characters under the microscope. I mean, Ben chimes in saying, "Can we just keep getting minis? I honestly don't need them to be connected."
Yeah,
it just speaks to the depth of the roster. That GI Joe characters and Cobra characters and Mars characters are all very interesting and have, you know, this iceberg theory that we only ever get to see just the top because they're in an ensemble cast. In fact, more than an ensemble cast, they're in an army of cast members, but each one of them has a compelling story to tell, a reason for being on the team or the faction, whichever side the divide they fall. So, like, let's see how long this can last. They've yet to do an obscure one. I think Scarlet is perhaps the closest to a B-list character. Though we're likely, I mean, Scarlet is absolutely GI Joe royalty, but she's not Baroness. You know, like, she's a GI Joe.
Baroness is featured in Duke, so you know.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is that Scarlet is not perhaps necessarily in people's top 10 character lists.
Wow.
So but she's got my interest.
That's an unpopular opinion, Stephen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Scarlet is a very well-known character.
Guys,
yeah.
A top 10 gets very crowded.
Should have a movie already.
Black Widow took decades. And in fact, she came late to the party.
And thankfully, it was actually not a bad movie. The shit that came after that. Sorry.
Yeah, but it should have come out about 3 years before it did, at least. Anyway, my point is, female action figures don't sell. No, what am I saying? Scarlet is like a top 10 favorite characters of GI Joe gets pretty crowded pretty quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if Scarlet sort of falls off the table as like an 11 or 12 slot. Think about it. Anyways, interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's a top 10 of mine, definitely.
Okay, I was about to say. Interesting hate in your
but
on your
I don't
side.
necessarily speak for the vast majority of GI Joe fans.
Wow.
And it tells, because I mean we've gotten lots of backstory on Destro, but have we ever gotten a comic backstory on Scarlet? I mean, there was one episode of the cartoon that shows off her family of martial artists. Or was a two-parter? Cobra's Captives to Cobra. That's it. But the comic book has kind of left her a blank slate. Before she joined GI Joe, she was
just a sister with a bunch of brothers.
No, she was Snake Eyes' girl. Anyways, let's not get into the place of females in pop culture. That's not what this episode's about.
Ooh.
We're gonna talk, gents.
We're gonna talk about one of the men.
I'm gonna sneak a little new segment.
You're scaring me.
On you before we start our comic book
Here
chat.
comes the new segment.
Well, GI Joburg has never been about toy photography. It's just been something incidental to the play motions. I think so. Like, how often have we intentionally gone out to take pictures? We don't kind of do that as a rule. But every once in a while, an image or two creeps into, I suppose, my folder on my phone that I think I sort of earmark as like, I want to save that. I want to keep that aside for such an occasion like this, when I'm going to throw it in front of your peepers and everybody watching this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, guys, do you want to go through a little bit of a G.I. Joburg photo album with me? We'll do 3 images each episode for however long the images last.
The interest lasts.
But on screen right now, we've got Recondo on a sort of mountain peak overlooking the Atlantic. And
it's going to be great radio.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just going to describe it for you folks listening back home.
The podcast of 1,000 words.
The ocean is veiled by this lovely ocean mist, which you often perceive over the cold Atlantic Ocean.
Whoa.
But in the foreground, we've got a ram cycle. It just kind of... It's got an adventure team vibe about it, I'd say. But, gents, I mean, I took the picture. You guys can tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's like,
Absolutely.
this is the picture I took. It is amazing. Look at my picture. No, Steve,
I think it's cool.
And listen,
it suggests
I love this shot.
Stuff, you know. It suggests things are happening, you know. Like, is he on his way to something?
Ricardo needs to pee.
Something to kind of like, yeah, he's going to pee. That's something else.
He's like, taking a piss off
nobody
the
can
cliff.
see me here.
Funny, guys. Well, he is holding his rifle. That could be, I suppose, a placeholder for something. Yep.
Oh, for sure. You know.
I mean, why has he gotten off his bike and taken his rifle? Maybe he's in hostile territory. It's like, you dare not be without your main weapon.
Don't you dare do this.
Maybe Rekondo's done with this. He's like, enough G.I. Joeing, enough Rekondoing, enough just being the guy on the team with a mustache. It all has to go. You know? I just love
to throw himself off the cliff with his rifle.
Throw himself off the cliff. No, I like this shot. I like the storytelling. because there's a lot that you can infer with it. But I also especially think a foreground element, like in a shot. So like the bike is kind of half telling us a story. Is he going through something in his mind before he goes off on a mission? Like, has he just come off from something and he's just like reflecting and he's just like, damn, should have shot that guy in the leg. Whatever. It's like, I like the story that it tells, and I like your composition and stuff. It's very cool. It's a very cool shot. Not that I want to turn this into a photography critique session, but I do want to talk about why. If I see something cool, then I want to talk about why I think that thing is cool, because it helps other people take cool shots.
Thanks, man. Well, the location has a lot to do with it. Let me not take too much credit for like the fact that I was driving home from work one day and just had this wonderful condition hanging over the sea.
Like, can't help but stop.
I'm gonna pull over.
Moonlight asks a damn good question, and I really like this question because we actually did kind of do this in the beginning, and then we ran out of them. Are you going to release those pics as new wallpapers? I'm using the shot of the flag for my desktop currently. Steve, that's on you. But I have another question.
That is your fault, Steven.
Should this encourage the other members of GI Joburg, namely Rob and myself, to take photos as well and bring them up? Because I would love to do that.
It's kind of a silly segment if Steven's the only one doing it.
There you go.
That's why I'm
also the pics from my gallery, guys. Just look at
I have a sneaking suspicion Ronnie Trickshot from Frostbite's Repro will be watching this perhaps. I totally poached this idea from him. His most recent episode was like a top 10 photography episode. Anyways, let's roll on into shot number 2 because as you mentioned, this isn't making great radio, so let's breeze through these images. We've got Jinx. She just laid waste to 2 Vipers.
One of my all-time favorite shots.
Well, funny you should say that, Paul, because this is the most non-fuss bit of photography that I've ever done, and that's like
funny how that happens, eh?
Just on the hotel room table, I had some action figures to hand, and I just thought that the downlight was particularly nice on this kind of reading table, and it kind of darkened all the background elements to make them disappear, and made these action figures really look quite shiny. And
isn't that
poetic.
The magic, eh? Sometimes that is how it happens.
So you
shoot hours and hours and hours of photo, and you try and you set up lighting and you do this whole thing, and then one day you just have this moment where you've just like, I know kind of why this shot was taken. You go, I want to have the shot. You want to quickly do this for the thumbnail, whatever. You go, boom, 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 boom. It comes out, and it's one of the most iconic shots that we've got in the GI Joburg play motion repertoire, in my opinion. That's one of my absolute favorite shots. I love this shot.
If I may just say that, like the thing that makes this a good pick for me anyway is the dead Viper on the right, because an O-ring figure has a very typical way of kind of posing or falling or looking when it's in your toy box or posed on your shelf. But this guy looks distinctly dead. Like he's had his throat slit and he's gone down holding it, which is not something you typically see O-ring figures portrayed as doing. So that always is quite arresting for me. And that's why I'm like, I keep coming back to this picture.
You've been arrested. Well, before we get too far away from it, Darren had a comment about the previous picture. 6 hours on that bike, my balls are killing me. Screw it, I'm walking. Who cares if I get there late?
Saddle sore.
Will this cause prostate cancer? Is this aggravating my prostate? Anyway, I think somebody at Rakonda's age would think about something about the shot that has always like just worked for me, and why I fell in love with it long ago when you gave it when you sent it to me to do the thumbnail, is that it's always had like a kind of a like a comic book cover feel, and it's just got a nice strong spotlight on the character, and I've always just loved that. It always just felt like a cool comic cover. And Jinx is of course a fabulous figure, and as Steve, as you mentioned, the way your Vipers are dead, and I just really love the shot. And it's simple. Like, this is kind of the essence of like sometimes owning toys. It's not necessarily you know, we don't always have the luxury of being able to take great shots because we can't afford nice lights or backdrops or whatever. But just taking a good shot like this without any of that to do is always a bonus. Anyway, sorry, man. Go for it. Because I know that you don't really like indoor shots either. Well, I know you prefer nature to do all the work for you. So this is
cool. Well,
it's not cool enough, apparently.
For a time, I was doing a lot of traveling, guys, and I always carried a few figures in my moon bag. So if you've got a setting that really could be a postcard, why not stick an action figure in front
Australia, they call those bum bags. I recently learned that.
Really? Or in the States, a fanny pack. Anyways.
Fanny pack.
I mean, you wouldn't know it by looking at this, but this was actually taken in China. This is in Changsha.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always a fun little memory
to
have.
Perfect.
Wasn't it like a month or two before COVID? Or 3 months before
I was
COVID?
in Wuhan when someone was becoming patient zero. I was there. That's my claim to fame. And finally, under consideration for today's session, a little moment where Shipwreck has stepped outside of a late-night coffee shop, or bar, if you will, and he's at a payphone. And, I mean, the photography doesn't tell more story than that. But you can imagine who he's calling. Is he calling home? Is he calling some girl he met?
55564. No,
the
4.
Viper.
Did you say 7? No, 4. Let's start your credit card number procedure again. Oh, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the mind races. What's Shipwreck doing? It's kind of obscure. It's kind of a high point of view. We're basically sitting on a lamppost looking down on him. So there's more storytelling there and less clarity, which I always find more interesting.
There's also some tension there because you got the shot going from a high angle as well. So it's implying that there's something, at least it's implying something heavier than something light. I don't feel like he's phoning home.
Well, I mean, it's also
to find out what the rugby score is. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a necessity as well for toy photography. I mean, you have to really find your angles, especially if you are outside, to kind of not make things
tell the story,
in scale. Yeah, I mean, it's more interesting. I think you have to work to make the shots more cinematic, I guess.
So,
and shout out to the mise en scène. My wife created the coffee shop that I'm using the exterior of, and Alan Grant. Dr. Alan Grant, he created the payphone made out of Lego.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get a new girlfriend because I bought Celia I bought her 2 diorama sets like that in the hopes of her just developing a new hobby and also building me some dioramas. And I have a half-built flower shop, damn it.
Honestly. Well, that's still interesting. You can still use that in a story.
Yeah, no, I could, but anyway, I'm joking. Obviously, it's Celia's like pastime. It's what she enjoys doing. It's fine. It can take a few years. I mean, people wait for stuff for a long time from me. I won't say anything. Steve, this I think I told you this when I first saw this picture as well. A lot of my characterization, a lot of my games with Shipwreck often involve it often starts with a phone call or ends with a phone call, or kind of starts and ends with a phone booth. And I often play these scenarios in my mind with Shipwreck at a payphone or something, getting details, like whether it be Hawk giving off sending off a mission, or Shipwreck getting himself deeper and deeper into cover or whatever it is. So this shot speaks to me in a big way as well. And
GI Joe as a property of 80s, the 1980s, payphones were playing a bigger role in drama because someone would call the restaurant that you're seated at and tell you you've got a call or something, and you'd take it, or you'd go across the road and go to a phone that couldn't be traced. Like it's
more dramatic. It's way more interesting than like looking down and you're like, oh, someone's calling me. Oh, I'll answer now. I'll go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, and answer in the bathroom is what I meant to say, but I wanted to.
Before we dust this image, I'd just like to draw attention to, a happy accident of posing. Shipwreck is actually balanced on 1 foot, which gives an added little bit of character. He's sort of shifting his weight, essentially. So we're looking at a guy who's maybe a little nervous to be making this phone call, maybe?
He's a little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Love little textural elements like that.
Hector X Delgado.
Look out
and
for
Hector Ramirez directing Phone Booth in cinemas soon. 1998 or whatever the hell it was when that film came out. Yeah.
Imagine doing a bottle episode with a Joe on a phone call the whole time.
Yeah, great fun.
Never been done.
It's
yes,
cool,
madam.
I think this should encourage us to take more shots. Definitely toy photography. I mean, obviously, we all know it's kind of one of the ways that a lot of people end up playing with their toys these days if they don't actually play with them. There's lots of accounts on Instagram and everywhere else where that is what a big thing that people do is toy photography. Even at this year's Comic-Con Cape Town, one of the featured guests is a local guy who actually does toy photography.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to meeting this dude. Actually, I've met him before.
Guys, it's here to stay. And Rob, you say it's not necessarily a way of playing. I would challenge that and say absolutely. If that is play. It absolutely is. There's storytelling. Sure. You're handling action figures. You're just doing it for the camera.
Yeah. No.
And you're getting
it's not like play, but it's still play. It's like an adult play with your toys. Is to do that. But I still think of playing with toys as actually physically playing with them. So
I know. It's nice to have play that is not for an end product. You might lose yourself in the kind of creating the image, but at the end of the day, you're doing this to kind of have something to take from it instead of just the happy memories of playtime.
Oh, the happy little memories, the happy little accidents.
Well, that's the cool thing about.
We're going to get into some happy little memories on this episode, Rob. You and I think, because issue 12 of GI Joe is a particularly important issue for us. And with that segue, do you guys want to talk about Duke first, or do you want to talk about issue 12 first?
Whoa, you've basically set us up for issue 12. We actually have no choice now but to do issue 12.
Oh, really?
Let's make people waiting.
You guys,
more people are here to listen to issue.
Well, we've already made them wait 30 minutes to hear about the brand new issue of GI Joe. So let's make them.
Well, here's the rub. So earlier, to check something, I wanted to confirm if we were doing issue 12.
Oh.
And then the information that I understood the information is no, we'll focus on Duke and other stuff.
But you've read this issue before, Don't worry.
I have, but it's a very long time ago.
You didn't read it for this, you didn't do the homework. It's fine.
I did not do my homework assignment because clearly I was just confused.
I'm taking points away from you now.
That said, I can find something to comment on. I was, born in the 80s. We do come with this ability to get into conversations we know nothing about.
Then we'll hold off actually reviewing the issue proper and just talk a little bit
first and give you enough time to read the issue.
I was going to say
about
Rob,
your memories,
just to cure people's perhaps. Curiosity.
We've blue balled them too long.
We have indeed. So when I say that we used to play
toy photography,
this issue had particular significance for us. I'm talking about issue 12. I'm referring specifically. What the hell? My windows disappeared. Don't like that.
You have no more windows.
The issue 12 takes place in Sierra Gordo, and it takes place on a kind of a river. Do you remember, Rob, that we dug up the garden and laid down plastic sheeting to recreate the events of issue 12 of GI Joe?
So one side of Steven's...
Rob doesn't realize this, but Steve was going to murder him. Sorry, Rob, carry on.
Oh, I thought so. But so Steven's house, they have a front garden and a back garden, and the one side of the house, it's connected, the front and back are connected by... it's me. I'm up there now, apparently. It's connected by an alleyway. and Stephen's father wasn't really doing much with it. So we decided that we'd just dig up the entire alleyway, basically the entire length of the house, which is probably about 4 or 5 meters, I think, or 5, 6, 7 meters approximately. I don't know how many feet that is, like 4 feet. I don't know. And basically set up our own like little lake, like river thing. Yeah, we put the plastic down, we filled it with water. I think it only stayed filled with water with probably the very first day that we played with it. Because I don't even know how old we were when we did this. But anyway, we basically created our own little artificial river at Stephen's house. And we did a lot of really cool stuff with it.
Yeah, man. And then I think I came back from school one day and my dad filled it in.
Amazing.
We took blood, sweat, and tear to dig that up. And we played in it maybe once? Twice?
Yeah, basically just once or twice. It was a proper, I mean, at least I think a foot or two deep as well. I mean, we worked real hard in getting that place to look nice.
And that was back in the day when my parents still had this cactus plant basically barring the route we took. So between where we were digging, like excavating, and where we were dumping the soil, we had to squeeze past a cactus. Yeah. I mean, I must have scarred myself quite badly on that bloody cactus plant. Anyways, we will indeed talk about issue 12 when all three of us have reread it, I'm afraid.
Somebody does the assignment.
And
somebody.
Well, so no worries. Gnashing their teeth. We're more focused on issue 3 of Duke. And
Let's
also, it's nicer. Let's keep it new.
It's the pilot of the Locust.
Let's keep it double D with this episode. Duke and Dune.
All right. Well,
hell yeah.
Robbie.
So we start.
What the hell happened in Duke issue 3?
Absolutely wild.
What happened?
So, well, the main thing is that obviously they're expecting people to come pick up the Joes, and that doesn't happen, unfortunately, because Destro has decided to employ Major Blood to basically infiltrate the pit and to recapture Duke and the technology that apparently he's carrying, which was handed to him by Dr. Burkhart previously. And we also get to see Destro is picking up a closing shop wherever he is currently. His Mars building, he's closing that down. He's moving on, and so that's the general thrust of the issue. Stalker and Rock and Roll kind of expressing their dissatisfaction with the mission that they were given and having to capture Duke. They don't feel it's right because he is such a decorated soldier, and also Rock and Roll kind of saying that if Duke hadn't been as banged up as he was from whatever had happened before, they probably wouldn't have even been able to capture him, actually. He's just that good. Yeah.
Also, they probably feel shit because he's like the main character, because his name's on the book. And
they are aware of that, obviously. They know that he's the main character.
Don't you love this trope? Don't you love the trope for this issue that Duke is once again captured? Just ironically, this time by GI Joe. But in Sunbow, he's often the damsel in distress. I'm not explaining this to you, gents. I'm just explaining this for the one person out there who doesn't know this. That is listening to us today.
Well, Josh,
but I love that.
Memo, he is often captured. But I mean, we have still yet to see him be forced into a some sort of battle arena in the series. Maybe by issue 5, we'll see him being in some sort of awesome battle arena fighting a big barbarian-looking guy, and Cobra Commander laughing at him from above.
Yeah, the Atari controller. So Duke's in a cell, and his cellmate, or not cellmate, his across-the-way neighbor, is none other than Anastasia Cisternova, aka the Baroness, who Duke has all the backstory on. Even
he already knows everything about. Yeah,
goes so far as to call her a full-on terrorist.
Yeah,
and then comes the moment that breaks this book for me, because inevitably Blood and his bloodhounds attack. The Joes have to fall back, and Duke decides to put a gun in a full-on terrorist's hand and accepts her assistance. And everything was going pretty well up until that moment. And that is a moment of like a plot imperative, like replacing the good sense of your characters. So I lost a lot of respect for Duke at that point.
We spent the last I mean, the first half of the issue, basically, yes, he knows exactly who she is, but I mean, she's also been kind of like trying to. Well, he's a hero, but she's been trying to whittle away at him as well. You know, the kind of setup that she kind of feels, that she has a lot to say about his position. You know, and that together they can escape. And I feel like her arguments maybe they don't seem to be convincing him necessarily, but in that moment you can kind of see like he's giving her a chance to kind of like, you wanted to get out together. This is your chance to prove that that's what you wanted to do.
I would accept that explanation, and certainly the explanation that like she's screaming at him, "Wait, you can't leave me here. They will kill me." He's not going to sentence her to death, but giving her a gun is the issue I take with
your main issue is you're fine with him letting her out. Okay, that makes sense. But giving her a gun does not make sense for you.
Guys,
you can take it or leave it,
also,
I guess.
Something that I think is worth mentioning is when Duke gets captured and he gets brought here, we're like, oh no, and whatever. But that was Duke's plan. He wanted to be taken off the board.
He wants to confront Hawk.
He expresses that in earlier, like, you want to escape, let's escape. And he's like, no, this is where I want to be. I want to be able to actually put my case forward to Hawk.
Well, something has changed also in the plotting. Like, he could have given himself up to Hawk at any point, but now he's finally got this device from Adele Burkhardt that's come online and is showing him where the other, I suppose, energy experiments are in the world. So he's finally got that damning piece of evidence that can tie Mars to the Energon, to perhaps the deaths of Adele and all of her followers. So he's finally got this key piece of information. But, of course, Major Blood is the spanner in the works, who has the robot arm, the classified robot arm in this presentation.
Yep.
And for a left arm as well. So
indeed. He whacks Duke on the back of the head.
Which is weird, right? Because it's a left arm punch, but looks like he's holding his right arm. Anyway, carry on. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so he's punching with his actual flesh and blood left arm.
So he hit him hard, not with the robot arm.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of loading up his robot arm for another punch, and that he delivers into the wall. Crash. He's got Duke dead to rights. Duke tries to punch Blood, but Blood blocks it with his metal arm. Tong! Just hammering home the fact that this is in fact a metal artificial limb. And he gets his leg fucking blown off, man.
Bam,
that
gone.
Cannon that Major Blood wields is vast, and he's just shot Duke through the leg. So, I mean, expect our first sergeant to walk with a limp for, I don't know, maybe the rest of his life.
Forevermore. And that gun is very cool. I think a lot of people agree with you. Even Peter Malin in the chat says he absolutely loves Blood's revolver.
It's monstrous.
I just want to stress cool. that I do want to stress that Duke has a plan, and I don't think he's necessarily
to get shot.
I don't think he's as naive. I don't think he's as naive as we think he is by giving Baroness the gun.
Well, it works out because hey, presto, plot armor. He's about to get blown away by Blood when Blood gets shot through the head. Or through the eyeball.
Through the head.
Because guess what? He's not wearing an eye patch just yet.
Eye patch, yes.
That's how he gets that. But it's Baroness pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
She's come back for Duke. She just wanted to get her leather catsuit. That's all she wanted to do. She didn't want to actually run away or anything.
Hell yeah.
Okay. And an unholy alliance, I suppose, is set in motion for issue number 4.
Well, I mean, Darren also kind of points out, I think that the whole gun thing is he knows you can trust the Baroness to look out for herself, which suits his need for a distraction.
Yeah.
It also kind of keeps, the attention away from him and the people he's with. But obviously, I mean, he didn't realize that these guys are really gunning directly for him.
Also, the Baroness thinks that she's convinced him. She thinks that she's got him a little bit like thinking and whatever, and we know for a fact Duke is not. Duke is made in America. Yeah.
A big portion of this book is a kind of a psychological war of wits, war of wills between Baroness, who's like, the system has clearly failed you, Duke. You've seen how empty and hollow it is, your pursuit of being this kind of real American hero. So come with me, help me, we can work together. It's an interesting, as I say, unholy alliance. I'm glad they got to this point. I'm just not entirely convinced of the moment that Duke decides to trust her. It seems a little too convenient, a little bit too contrived, but
a little too quick. But it's 5-issue miniseries. You kind of have to like move things along if you're gonna get somewhere with this whole story. And if Blood survives, which I'm sure he will, that's also an interesting conflict between him and the Baroness going forward, depending on how the whole Cobra versus GI Joe thing plays out in the Energon universe.
I got a question for you guys.
That's also a subplot as well. So
I've got a technical question for you guys.
Ooh.
But carry on, Baroness. What?
No, I was going to say the Baroness and Blood do kind of have that as a trait, as character traits. Like it's part of their story, if you know what I mean, for them to not necessarily see eye to eye. I mean, the Blood is responsible for the Baroness having to get major plastic surgery as well, if I'm not mistaken.
But then Blood and Baroness plotted together to have Cobra Commander assassinated. It's a twisted web, at least in Era. I imagine a lot of that will carry over into this Energon universe. Guys, is the pit derelict and abandoned and just being staffed by Stalker and Rock and Roll? Or are there actual Joe staff members? Or not Joe, just regular army staff members?
I think it's derelict. They essentially just whoever's in the know knows to bring your prisoners here, and it's a good pickup point because it's such a secure and off the grid location. That's kind of how I perceived it.
Paul?
They want to definitely give you the impression it's derelict, but when you I thought it was derelict the whole time until you actually asked the question, and now
you asked the question.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do see some staff members there with them. I mean, while they're on the call with Hawk, so in their own control room, there are other people. So it could be it is minimally staffed to kind of like keep the functionality of the base going. Especially when you have prisoners there. I mean, I don't think it's run by Stalker and Rock and Roll. It was just a convenient location that they would take Duke to. Like they're not the guys in charge of the pit, I think.
Damn.
Well, I guess those guys all got slaughtered by the Bloodhounds. What do you think of that as a name for Blood's boys?
I think it's kind of cool. Why not?
Didn't Blood have a bunch of heavies in that what is it, that side story rubbish after Shakedown happened? Didn't you have a bunch of like Vipers that were like
yes, he replaced the Cobra troops with his own guys.
So
okay,
I suppose
right. To anyone scratching their heads, this was IDW issue, it's something in the 200s. So, the late 200s. It's a sort of a one-shot issue that takes place after issue 34, Shakedown.
Blood without an eye patch is just weird, man.
It's funny you should say that, because until he got the shot to the head, I hadn't clicked that he hadn't been wearing an eye patch. I was like, because he's got all the other signifiers of Blood, that helmet, the moustache,
cool gun.
I really like the fact that he's got that sort of white hair in his temple. That's something that hasn't... I mean, because Blood's action figure was always helmeted, it wasn't something that I canonically associated with Blood, but it's definitely something that fits, because he is the older soldier. He's cynical. He's done his time in uniform. Now he's a mercenary. He's in it for his own personal gain. He's kind of almost, in a way, earned that place. He's earned the right to be cynical of all the systems and just be in it for the payouts now.
Well, it's not the first time as well. I mean, Rachel points out that Blood had the Skull Squad in the Cobra's Most Wanted convention set as well. So it's not like he's never had like guys working for him. Just the name changes.
Yeah, man. And since we don't have a formal Cobra army or Iron Grenadiers just yet, we needed something, some bullet stoppers.
Yeah, we need some sort of brown shirts in this case.
They still look cool. No, I love how like old school anime they look. They remind me so much of
it's the goggles,
the Galactus forces. Yeah, it's the goggles. They remind me of the Galactus forces from Gatchaman.
It's funny how your brain works because they're never colorized brown because of the very stylized kind of colorization of this book.
Yeah,
but you know that they're wearing brown. Okay,
they're shirts for sure.
Lovely guys.
This is a really fun little issue. Again, it's too short, which kind of bugs me. Like it goes through so quickly and it's so enjoyable, and you want
it
more.
Does. I mean, and there's enough dialogue. I think there's like overly dialogue heavy. Like there's enough to kind of like give you what you need to know, and you know, like the big focus is the kind of the conversation between Baroness and Duke, where it feels like she's trying to convince him, you know, of you know, like you don't have to be as loyal as you have been, and then it kind of moves a little bit quicker after that. But yeah, I'm hoping for really cool things to come after this. 2 issues to go. It's all too short.
No, it's sad.
Well, it's short enough to make this quite an exhilarating ride.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think what end point we leave off at.
Yeah, and I think minis are a really good way of kind of like telling a bunch of stories fairly quickly, and getting a bunch of different creative teams onto the GI Joe property. It's kind of cool to see so many multiple titles, you know, kind of going on as we go along. And yeah, I'm still very excited for the continued success of the Energon universe.
2 Easter eggs I'd like to draw attention to. Cobra helicopters.
I know one.
Yeah. These are.
Is one of them the Cobra helicopters? Is that one of the Easter eggs?
Is it, Paul?
I'm feeling really strongly about this.
Yes, I do feel it's the so-called and poorly named Aspid. But yeah, Pre-Aspid.
Pre-Aspid. Well, this is looking a little bit more on model than the Cobra transport helicopter has been looking in recent ARA presentations. It feels like they've gotten back to the Rod Wiggum playbook on this one, or influences, references. It's got the chin gun. It's got just the dimensions, the shape and feel.
Yeah.
Even though I will say, like, you know, this artwork is obviously a little bit more stylized. It's not particularly, you know, it's not like an aircraft handbook in terms of its presentation, but it's it definitely tickles my nostalgia bone a little bit harder than that butt ugly Chap May helicopter that gets used as reference. Gross.
Yeah, it's wrong. Damn you, hashtag for proliferating that image.
And sorry, I have to like comment on this because there's just so much of it happening in this book, but the composition on these pages is just like spot on.
Hell
yeah. A worm's eye view as the
so sexy
bloodhounds are ziplining down, fast lining down from these helicopters, with the sun in the background, and it's kind of a blood red page.
Yeah, you can hear the kind of sound. You know, it sounds hot. It sounds
aggressive.
You hear the
I mean the composition on the artist, the shots he chooses are always consistently good.
And guys, do you suppose it's a rights issue why they can't use the Rolling Stones lyric on the page? Because at one point, Clutch says, "You don't always get what you want." You know, he says, as the song says, "You don't always get what you want." I mean, that's...
Oh, no, I think that's stylistic. They don't want to labor it.
Okay. So...
that's the feeling I get, yeah. They don't want to labor it.
Is Clutch making a little bit of a faux pas there and not saying you can't always get what you want?
Yeah. Could be that. Although, they just really don't want to have to give the Rolling Stones any money. Hasbro's struggling,
think
guys.
If you read it, I don't want to be here either, but as the song says, you don't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. Maybe it was an editorial decision as well. Maybe they just liked the ring of you don't. And actually, Steve, the more I think about it now, maybe it was. I don't know if you would get into shit for using that lyric in this format that way, because you're not.
Well, you're quoting a lyric. I think that's fine. But it could also just be the Mandela effect. Maybe we're all remembering it wrong. Maybe it is you don't always get what you want.
Well, someone here went online and checked the lyrics, and at no point
does it say don't.
Is it sung they don't always.
Well,
you don't always get what you want.
Yeah, it's maybe he's thinking of like a cover where someone gets it wrong. Maybe he doesn't even listen to the Rolling Stones. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. He's misquoted them.
He's just trying to be smooth, you know. He's like, oh, damn, Baroness, she fine. She's going to love it if she know I listen to cool rock music. But he doesn't actually, so he's, you know, trying to be cool, but he really isn't.
Look, maybe it just was something that legal flagged, and they were like, let's play it safe. Just change the lyric by one word, and we'll be fine.
Please don't get us in trouble.
Great, guys. Duke issue 3. What are we giving this out at 5?
Wow. Yeah, I'm still gonna stick on like 4. I think 4 out of 5. Like I think it's a strong issue. It's a strong issue. Beautiful art. It's consistently good so far. Like I haven't had a down point so far in this entire miniseries. Long may it last.
I'm giving it a 4. I wanted to give it a 5, but the damn command room. There's one like little. So they're in this command center. They're speaking to Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. Okay. This is on me for not really like fully embracing the fact that there was a crew there. But I don't feel like that. Like, listen, guys, I have to nitpick. Okay, this book is really amazing. I have to nitpick to justify my score here.
Okay.
But we don't really know where they are in that situation. They're having a very private conversation over a very open channel. There's a lot of people around there that can just listen to them, which I just think is very like unmilitary, and very just not. It doesn't work. It looks cool, but it doesn't work. And yeah, that's like literally the only issue I had, because I honestly, like when Steve mentioned that whole question earlier, and I was like, yo, actually, I wonder if there are people there, and then there's actual proof, and I'm like, congratulations, Paul, you're a dickhead. So 4 out of 5. It's an amazing book, though. Yeah,
hell yeah.
I can forgive a book like staging its action in such a way as you've got hero characters diving through hails of gunfire. It happened in issue 1. Hell, it happened in issue 2 as well, but we knew in hindsight that rock and roll wasn't shooting to kill. He was very surgically shooting to miss. But, you know, in issue 1, we had that kind of faux police squad that raids Adele's house, and like full autos on Duke, and he just is able to kind of, I don't know, Spider-Man his way through the hail of bullets. Well, it happens again in this issue. Duke dives through a hail of bullets.
Yeah, but
survives.
They're not
I
trying
don't
to
mind
shoot him
that.
dead.
I don't mind that not nearly as much as I mind our characters doing things completely out of character just because the plot demands it. And Darren gives us a delicious little write-up to tease out this point. Baroness, give me a gun. Duke, why should I? Baroness, because it is a short comic and we have very few pages left. Duke, fine. Just don't wound someone in a way that will cause them to swear vengeance on us. It's a moment that is more plot driven than logic driven. And that kind of is a nitpick that does overhang this book a little bit, and
yeah, it definitely sits with you.
I'm gonna drop down to 3.5 on this one. I don't know if I've rated a Duke book as low as this one.
Low.
It's very talky, and doesn't really move the needle much, except now Duke's gonna have to play out the rest of this miniseries with a leg wound.
He's not gonna get far.
No, he's gonna do that. And the bullet's gonna shoot out.
Oh, yeah, of course. Plot armor and plot healing. Guys, we are zipping through. Should we talk a little bit about some new toys?
Whoa.
Yes,
Anybody got some new shit?
New toys.
New toys.
It's our favorite thing to do. New toys.
New toys.
Well, I went to a vintage toy market, not too long ago.
What did they do there?
Australia.
Sell vintage toys. Look, I found a tub of dusty GI Joe vehicle beaters. Rob, I almost bought you that ninja battle axe that I know that you're dying to have.
No, please, anyone listening to this, if you have not seen episodes where I say how much I hated Stephen is being.
Rob is not being sarcastic. He really does not want this.
I don't want it. Stephen
He will back his truck over that toy.
Rob doesn't want this. You should not get it for him.
Yes,
hey,
yes,
to make for an entertaining bit of content, if nothing else. But I did find, like, basically twisted into like a crumpled tube of toy, one of the GI Joe battle gliders that I needed to complete my 90s
Oh
set.
wow, hell yeah. So is that the villain one?
No, well, it says GI Joe on it, Rob, you tell me. This is Cloudbursts. I've got a Cloudburst that I got from Withers Amusements in Cape Town, but I haven't had his glider, and now I do. And what's fun about this glider is it is the glider that gets used in the Hello, Cujo. Hey, welcome, buddy. Do you want to jump in the session? Do you have a microphone handy? But it's the glider that gets used in the Deke animation more than any of the others. Like, this is the one that's the animation model. Like, do you guys remember when we did Infested Island? We did a rewatch, and like at one point, Clean Sweep bails out of his Storm Eagle jet, and this just kind of pops out of his back. Hey, do you remember that? Like, instead of parachutes, they switched to gliders, to 90s gliders, and I think that's just too delicious. So yeah, fun. And I mean, if you don't have a Cloudburst figure, you can use pretty much any of the Eco Warriors as your designated partner.
Yeah, fair game, really.
Should use Wild Boar, because if you lose them, nobody will care.
I picked up Iceberg for $8. That was delightful.
Iceberg?
Hey,
This glider only cost $5 because it was in such munted condition, as they say out here.
Munted.
Like I showed it to the guy, and he was like, "That piece of crap. Give me $5. It's yours." Fun. And these things.
Rob, you and I will know $5 as 500 rand.
Yeah.
I'm joking. What is that, like $70? 70 rand?
It's 3.5 USD, I think, something in that range. Anyway, Iceberg, couldn't leave him behind, and he's probably destined for you, Rob. But he's
doesn't transform into a sea lion though. Sorry.
At least his thumbs aren't broken like your one.
True that. Yeah, he's not in bad nick. I'm trying to think.
Wasn't Iceberg one of your first figures as a child?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my first 3 figures was Iceberg, Lifeline, and Monkey Wrench.
Oops.
And I remember using Iceberg particularly because he was suggestive of the snowy environment. I used to kind of squint my eyes and pretend that it was a blizzard, and he was tracking footsteps through the snow before they disappeared. And yes,
thank you, G7. It's an orca.
Orca transformation feature not included.
Boom. There was bite a shark.
There was a thread once upon a time, a group chat that I was privy to, where we were discussing what could be made by Super 7 in their O-ring line. And probably the funniest passage was, because there's an animation cell of him as a white guy, and he's portrayed as white in some of the comic book panels. So it's like, Iceberg as a white guy, Payload as a white guy, Iceberg as a whale. Come on, Super 7, deliver.
That would be fascinating.
Found at this toy fair, going for a song, what for some reason is a valuable figure.
Yes!
It's
that's
the
very
Red
cool.
Ninja.
Yes. Red Ninja or something.
Like the unofficial DICE version 2, basically.
Very
just
cool.
Red Ninja.
I've been looking at that on Withers' store for a while now.
Oh, I won't lie. Does he have one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Well, I'm very keen on that.
Coloring.
Yeah.
I adore this figure's sculpt. Dice is probably the strongest sculpt of all the Ninja Force figures. Cricket leg pads notwithstanding. And this
have
is
you
just
met Zartan, our
Nah.
Ninja Lord and Savior?
Get out of here with that. He's got weird proportions. Dice over here is a cool figure, and it's nice to have another version of him. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, he looks fun under a nightlight. I mean, a black light.
That's what he's called.
Keeping it Joe, guys, I've been trying to get a cesspool for a song out here, and I found an eBay listing that had his accessories.
No, shut your face.
I have the respirator.
Wow.
Shut your face.
Cesspool is a top 10 action figure for me. If you don't believe me, check out my decades old video, Steve's top 10 vintage action figures. My childhood one has never had its respirator. I guess it was a very weak dab of glue on my childhood sample, and that thing met with eternity very early on.
I never even knew it had that on the helmet.
Well,
I was very recently.
Now you know what goes in that hole, Rob.
I'm always happy to know when a hole's filled.
There you go.
I was recently rifling through my box of Joes for reasons that will be revealed later on in this episode. But then I also went past my cesspool, and I really do lament not having that rebreather or the respirator. That's why my reaction was so strong when Steve popped up, because when you're going through your toy box and you pull out your cesspool that you haven't looked at maybe in a couple of weeks, he looks like RoboCop, and he's like, "If you do not come with me, there will be trouble." Because you can literally see his mouth through the hole, and it drives me crazy. So nice, Steve.
Hell yeah, dude.
Very cool. Disco dice, and
it is actually a glue that is holding him in place. It's not friction free.
No,
so I mean, 90% of cesspool respirators are missing, as Rachel Salinas, or no, as Kyle A points out. But thank you all the same, Rachel. But I mean, this is a particularly gloppy application of glue. So that last 10% of cesspool helmets really got all the glue that the other 90%.
That, or maybe the previous owner did that. You never know. But hey, thank God it's there, right?
Though also, I think the seller was particularly unknowledgeable about Joe. Her other eBay listings were tea sets and stuff. That's why I was able to get this for
My Little Pony
next to nothing.
And the like. But Cesspool's such a cool character because, or at least for me, A, because I had him as a kid, and B, because he was actually a boss in the GI Joe video game in Atlantis.
Yeah.
And
he's got a compelling story that has yet to be adequately told, I think.
I agree.
It's wild.
The closest we get to
GI
it is actually
Joburg are the people to do it.
The Deke
Iceberg. Sorry, I've just automatically brought this up, but G7 asked earlier or mentioned earlier, isn't there a fun school?
Ah, that's great.
And there is. I didn't know this existed, and he is quite Caucasian. I didn't even know this was a thing. Sorry, I had
that
to
is amazing. Yeah, Super 7 should do that. Actually,
isn't that crazy?
And then just give him a different name. You know, like.
I find this crazy. I never knew there was a thing. And also, Dabuya J mentioned getting a Transformers Toy Generation Legacy Bruno action figure earlier. What a cool toy!
Love it. He's in our toy shops here locally, Steve. I mean, Rob.
Oh, for real?
Inferno.
And I've been so tempted to pick him up. I must be honest. He's so great. A part of me is kind of hoping he drops in price and I can get him like Black Arachnia.
Those guys, dude, the toys, they don't drop in price.
They do drop in price. I got Black Arachnia for like $150, bro.
I don't know how that happened.
I had to go all the way to Pretoria for it.
That is an anomaly because those toys sit at our Toys R Us and Toy Kingdom here. They will always
they will forever, but they will eventually drop in price.
Yeah.
I call this the Steve Book of Toy Shopping.
For 7 years. Like, there's exactly the same price.
Hope springs eternal. But something that has been sitting at the same price, aka bargain prices, ever since I suppose the end of the 90s.
What is it, Stephen?
Star Wars Power of the Force 2 figures. However, this is Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire, which was...
They got more action-oriented with the sculpting.
Look,
is that Wolverine's gun?
It is Wolverine's gun because he came with all his accessories. I paid a whole $5 for this guy. I couldn't leave him alone because he reminds me of a time in Star Wars before there were prequels. We just had the three original movies and the Ewoks shit. But we had all the imagination in the world, and Shadows of the Empire was that moment in Star Wars marketing where like everything short of a movie was being done.
Yeah. Crazy, hey? I mean, video
games, comic books. What an exciting and imaginative time to be a Star Wars fan. Like, everything was possible. And to have new material.
It was a big push, obviously. I mean, I think obviously a lot of expanded universe stuff did exist before that came out. I mean, and they had made lots of video games and lots of books and comics. But I think that was the biggest, like, pop cultural thing that came out, where like everyone suddenly knew about this new Star Wars thing.
Well, I'm
definitely looking for an Outrider now. They did the Outrider. It's woefully underscaled.
Yes, Cujo knows that. That's the code for Shadows of the Empire. See you, bro.
N64. Yeah. N64 and PC, was it?
No, later on PC, but it was an N64 launch title. It's one of the reasons you wanted an N64.
Yes.
I know because I was there and I've got it. So
allegedly a better Hoth snowspeeder sequence than like anything that had come at that point.
Up until that point, yes, definitely. And then only to be superseded by Rogue Squadron.
Star Wars Arcade. Oh, Rogue Squadron.
No, Rogue Squadron.
No. Rogue Squadron is better. It's better. But it's on rails.
No, you're thinking of Rebel Assault.
That's it. Mr. Gaming
Rogue
Man.
Squadron was the Ace Combat of Star Wars games.
Amazing.
You flew on missions with Red Team and then Rogue Team. You do the trench run, you do Hoth, and then you do a whole bunch of other missions that were just super, super cool. Amazing game. Also in 64 and later PC release. If you guys can get your hands on it, get it. It's really cool. It's like the less technical version of the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games.
One thing I am going to draw everyone's attention to on this action figure is where he puts his belt buckle. Now that's right on the D. I mean,
that's right.
That's hanging a little too
starts
low.
With you.
Why? Oh gosh, it was the 90s. Oh, delightful.
Oh, it's so I've actually been watching. It's so cool that you bring up that toy because literally the last 2 weeks now I've been watching replays of old Star Wars games by this one guy called Evan Price. Really cool guy, and he's been doing the Dark Forces and then Dark Forces 2's Jedi Knight and then Jedi Knight 2 and then it's been such a treat to watch actually, and especially now with Dark Forces Remastered being released now on PC and console as well by Night Dive Studios. So they've done like a whole remaster of that old game, and it's just it's so good. It's as good. It's like when they've done everything else that they've done has been gold. So check it out. The Dark Forces remaster is amazing. Yes, TIE Fighter is something I do want, Ben. Very much so.
TIE Fighter was awesome. Me and Stephen loved playing that when we were kids.
So good.
Loading up C, --TIE Fighter.exe, enter.
You remember things a bit differently than I did. I think my father's 486 struggled to run TIE Fighter or something. I think we only ever played X-Wing, which was an absolute chore with the mouse. We didn't have a joystick. Anyway.
Roll that shit around,
I was too young to actually understand how games worked. Like, I didn't know how to launch the campaign. So I just kept playing the same missions over and over and over.
Manual. I still miss games coming with giant instruction manuals.
So do I.
This is how you learn how to play the game. Reading. These days it's like...
There's something to read while it installed.
Exactly, I mean, wild. Well, these days you get tutorial missions and, it explains to you on screen. Like, back then you had to be literate to be able to play games. Wild. Wild.
That's me and my new shit, guys. If you want to throw anything into... I can't
believe you have so much new shit, Stephen. Paul.
So,
it's a treasure trove.
So,
Australia.
I visited Steve not last year, but the year before in Cape Town. Remember, there's some videos and stuff of it. And
this is real new shit you're talking about now.
You guys got to meet Skolt. And about a month after that, so when I got back to Joburg, or a month after getting back to Joburg, I ordered this figure because it was announced. And Skolts could get them, and I was very excited because this is probably, in my opinion, was the only way I was going to be able to get this figure for a reasonable price. And then they also had another variation, which then got Steve as a Christmas gift, Christmas/birthday gift kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I finally have mine now because Rob's also got one. I finally got my Black Major Steel Brigade.
Hell yeah, dude.
Everybody needs Thundershock. As
Fuck
by
yeah.
my 10-year-old self. 9-year-old self. So I finally have one. This is the closest I'll be to getting one of these guys, and they are great. And they're a lot of fun, and at least I'm not depriving somebody from a real one in their collection by owning
It's
one.
a good
I
reproduction.
don't care. It's a great
lot of
repro.
fun.
I can have a lot of fun with it. I'm not scared of breaking it. I am scared of breaking it, but you know what I mean. Then, what else came through? I'm building up to the coolness here. So then I've got a bit of a Sky Patrol kick, which really does need to get fixed now. So I recently got Skydive. So yeah, I know he's everybody's favorite character.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course
anyway,
he is. He's like flying Dalton, basically.
Basically, but he is the first Sky Patrol figure I was ever sort of introduced to, because I knew that Sky Patrol existed because of him, because David always had him. So now I finally have my own Skydive, and this is not last. This amazing toy came into my life. This is Countdown Sci-Fi. Always call him Countdown because of the sci. It's Star Brigade Sci-Fi from '94. Beautiful, huh? I love it with my own
Very unique. I will say that.
I love him. Check this Gatling gun on his left hand. I don't have the accessories for him, but I think he's an amazing figure. Love the colors. I love me some neon colors. Sorry. Oh, so good. Love this. I've been enamored with this since I got it. And then this is a cool one. I mean, the guys do know about sci-fi, but what you guys don't know about, don't get too excited.
Okay.
It's Sky
I'm not
Patrol.
excited anymore.
Okay, but I've had these guys from Sky Patrol, so it's Airwave, Drop Zone, Static Line, but I haven't had their helmets. So Skolt sent me Static Line's helmet, and I keep wanting to call this guy Airwave, but I think this is Airwave. Finally got their proper helmets, which is so cool, especially with the team
Holy
like
balls,
Sky Patrol.
dude.
Yeah.
No one has excess Sky Patrol helmets lying around. Skolts he's a good Samaritan. He's that's a 1 in a million.
I mean, I paid for it. Please don't get me wrong. But yeah.
Still, I mean, as I said, the helmets are the first thing to go missing. Everyone's got unhelmeted Sky Patrol figures kicking around. Amazing.
So yeah. So it's really cool. So now I just need a helmet for Skydive.
Skydive is giving me I mean, I've never seen him without sunglasses, but if Sergeant Slaughter was to be sunglassless, there's something to that head sculpt. He's got the little moustache. He's got a high V hairline.
I always used to call him Major Dad.
Okay. Yeah.
He's always giving me that vibe.
That's a reference to all the old people.
Yeah. He's always giving me a bit of a Major Dad vibe. Hey, look, I love the actual body sculpt. It's very cool. I mean, these were all basically
It's Gyro Viper.
Repaints. Yeah.
But it's unrecognizable in that color scheme, virtually.
Fascinating.
Very good.
The only one I need now is Airborne. And then I've got the whole Sky Patrol.
Congrats.
Which is great because I love Sky Patrol. Sky Patrol is amazing. Yeah. Then
hopefully you have
on my quest of Mega Marines and now Star Brigade, specifically 94 Star Brigade.
Hell yeah, that's so cool,
it's a weird thing. Damn sci-fi, bro. This toy is great. Get it.
I mean, to anyone who's not aware, he's got a sculpted Gatling gun on his left forearm.
Yeah.
Which prompts me to wonder, is he an amputee at this point? Like so many Star Brigade figures seem to be.
You might.
Or is this just kind of an armored gauntlet? Either way, it's really cool to have sculpted weaponry on your figure.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to attach anything, you don't have to put anything in his hands, but he's already got a weapon, like built in, baked in.
Absolutely wild.
It's great.
Oh, I'm not alone. G7 says, yes, even in the 90s, we thought he looked like Major Dad. Damn right, Gunny. Anyway.
Well, I don't have anything new, but I have been slowly unboxing the figures that Tim Wild sent me, my GI Joe classifieds, and I thought I'd kind of just show off my sci-fi Duke.
I
think he's a decent figure overall. I think he's actually kind of cool.
I agree.
I like his highlights in his hair. Well sculpted overall. I just don't like that the little spade on his backpack doesn't come out. That's kind of stupid. Like, why did he even bother sculpting it then? Which is silly because he also comes with like a binoculars which you can remove from his belt.
Which you can't exactly.
So why would you do that and not include the trowel? I mean, obviously the gun on the hip. But yeah, obviously, as was I think obviously said at the time, the weaponry that they come with originally was all very too sci-fi and too Fortnite, as it were.
It was very Cartoon Network
sci-fi. Is not cool at all, and you can't even like paint it over to make it look like not what it is. So I will definitely be equipping him with anything else. But yeah, a very cool figure. I think they hit it out of the park from the very first figures, especially with articulation. They definitely, they knew what they had. I mean, yes, I will agree with basically everyone else. The chest sculpt point is very ugly on a lot of the figures, and it's fairly prominent on him. But I even saw in some of the recent pictures of, I think, Roadblock, where you can literally see a space, between the top of the where the chest and the articulation point are. You can see straight through his chest. It's such a big thing, and it makes it look more ugly. But I think they've gone a little bit better with that in some of the figures. And there's some cool stuff coming out soon. I think they shared pictures of them doing a dial tone, I believe, for GI Joe Classified. That's something that might be coming out.
It's a name-only reveal at this point.
Yeah. Name-only reveal.
I'm sure renders were around the corner.
Yeah,
you'll be pleased to know, Rob, that the forthcoming retro collection carded Duke will have a removable shovel.
Well, there we go. Finally. Thank God.
I mean, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do also know that it's got all this kind of... It's got all this writing on it, like, wherever there's trouble on land and sea and air, G.I. Joe is there, like, man.
My troll goes everywhere, land, sea, and air.
It apparently sees absolutely no use as a trowel or an entrenching tool or whatever you want to call it, because
use for anything else.
That print would be the first thing to disappear. Anyway, awesome. I'm glad you like Duke.
Yeah,
I have 4 years late to the party.
I have to throw this out here, but Carl A, those 94 Star Brigade figures were used to clutter the shelves at Reggie's. That's how. Say something that tells me you're from South Africa.
Well, he said earlier he got his he bought something from Hyperama. That's where he found his.
I missed that comment. And also, I love this as well. G7 saying that sci-fi was the last figure I bought in stores back in the day. I'm so glad that this kind of has like interesting memories with people. Moonlight. This also surprised me. No, not that one. Earlier, sorry, Moonlight. Your earlier comments. Yeah, that sci-fi has to be one of my childhood faves. Love that Vulcan on the hand, and of course, this must have been a figure that came out right in the middle of you being a kid as well. So
I'm glad you guys like this figure. More for you guys.
I love it, Rob. You own DJ now. You're not allowed to comment. You're not allowed to say obscene things towards those kind of figures. You also just said Classified Duke is a nice toy. No, I'm kidding. It is a nice toy. I really like it. It's weapon stuff.
He's so much better. He's got a very unique personality.
Guys, I think we've cleared our GI Joe agenda for this
all the shelves are absolutely cleared. There's nothing else to show you.
if anyone here is not at all interested in Denis Villeneuve's Dune, you're welcome to.
You don't want spoilers.
Thank
you, Kyle. Thank you. Yes, it is a travesty they have not made a classified scoop yet.
I agree.
Or even announced 100%. One. Principal
cast
make from Deke. He's a principal Deke.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't even make Duke's scoop removable on the classified figure.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They hate scoop. I know it. But yes, that is the end of our Joe talk. We're gonna ruin Dune 2 for you now. If you don't want to hear anything about Dune 2, thanks for joining us. We're going to the cinema, as we've done many times before. We even dedicate entire episodes to really good movies like Last Jedi. Fantastic times.
Lovely time. Let's thank our patrons before we do that. Boom.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Love you guys.
Thank you, patrons. Cheers. You guys are the best.
Thank you to everyone who keeps the lights on, keeps us going, keeps us motivated, gets us a coffee. Absolutely awesome.
Appreciate it.
Also, do you guys like my Ninja Turtle shirt? Well, we
that's
don't
cool.
sell that on our merch store, but you can go to our Teespring and get one of our cool GI Joburg shirts.
Link in the description below.
Yeah, check out the link. And also, I think there's a special or something. There's like $16 tees or whatever's going at the moment. I don't know, whatever's. Knock yourselves out. Cool.
Damn, maybe I'll buy myself a shirt.
All right, gents.
Cool. Okay.
My biggest disappointment with this movie is that there wasn't a previously on Dune at the start of the movie, because I decided not to watch the previous movie. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. That sounds like 3 hours. I'll never get back. I'm going to start at number 2. I'm starting at the Empire Strikes Back of Dune, and very good.
Right, even as a standalone movie, Part 2 is very good.
I think so.
I did catch Part 1 in cinemas when it was released, and I mean, at that point, Part 2 hadn't been announced yet. So it was like, what the hell, man? How do they wrap this up? Because I grew up with the David Lynch film as like a tape that I had in my parents' tape cupboard. So anytime anytime I was having too much fun rewatching Star Wars, I decided to slap in Dune and had a very unfun time. But it was hard science fiction, and like my brain just wanted to lap it up. Well, maybe we'll get into a discussion of that. But it's I think my memories of that film are truncated because I think I just fast forwarded to like the cool bits.
Yeah, like the knife fight.
Knife fights, anytime that boxy excuse for an ornithopter was on screen. Worms, the weirding way, all that stuff. But look, so that film was in my rear view when I was watching Dune Part 1. And I knew how much story they had to still get through. And I'm like, Zendaya's top billed cast, and she's only just made an appearance and pissed me off with her dialect choice. And now the film's over? So coming out of that film, the news hot on the presses was, yes, he's been greenlit for his Part 2. It's coming. And now I believe Part 3 is going to be
for sure,
in the works. And and it should be. This is kind of where it's at the moment. After superhero fatigue, after Star Wars has completely dropped the ball, this story is finally being pushed to the forefront, where perhaps it always should have been. George Lucas still doesn't acknowledge Dune as an influence.
Wild.
Weird, huh?
Strange.
I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine why he wouldn't do that.
Maybe he hadn't read it. Maybe, it's just an enormous coincidence how many plot elements are the same.
I think it was a peripheral influence on his films. I think a lot of people around him were talking about Dune, and a lot of film students were talking about Dune, and they were very excited about the sci-fi, about the books and things like that. And there was obviously guys in his class that were big fans of Dune. And yes, I'm sure he pulled out something from that, but maybe he just never read it. you know.
That could also be. I mean, but I mean, he's been very open about it, the influences. You know, I mean, you know, especially the kind of like Japanese cinema.
Maybe once again, it was like a case of like legal not giving him the go ahead to talk about it because this was a pending lawsuit. I mean, it was in Frank Herbert's best interests to pursue it, not because he needed more money or because he was, you know, wanting to make a big splash. It literally sets a poor precedent for any authors moving forward if something so similar is not acted on. But it never came to that. I don't know. Maybe it happened very quietly behind closed doors.
I would say the biggest victim of that, if I can, just before we move forward, the biggest victim of that is that it put pressure on a Dune movie to initially feel like Star Wars, which it shouldn't have. Because David Lynch's Dune puts emphasis on a character in a way that is wrong. Like, it's cool for the film, in the context of the film, and smarter viewers would also put two and two together, but it generally makes it a hero film, which is kind of like Star Wars is as well, you know? We only get that,
We're going to see Steve, perhaps this descent. Yeah, no, it's terrific. Keep Paul Atreides more deep, a more ambiguous, morally ambivalent character. Don't treat him as a messiah necessarily. But look, I have never read the novels, and I'm going to steer clear of it because this is essentially like reading the script of Empire Strikes Back before going and seeing Empire Strikes Back. I don't want any of the cheat codes or any kind of before knowledge of this because I'm looking at Dune, the whole saga, with fresh eyes. My only blushings with it was as a child watching the David Lynch movie endlessly, or at least
and the game.
Selected portions of it. Yes, and Dune too.
Make no mistake, the game had a huge influence.
Perhaps more on the way I played with Micro Machine toys than anything else, because having a real-time strategy game gave me an idea of like that is how I play with my Micro Machine military vehicles. So that was a huge influence there. But guys, my YouTube feed is blowing up with Dune stuff, as is most people's nowadays. It's kind of it's a hot topic. I love the cast. Absolutely all their interviews have been stellar. Denis himself is a visionary. I mean, it's wonderful hearing him talk about how he has a very honest approach to filmmaking and like try and avoid VFX trickery use VFX to enhance what
don't use it
is classic cinema than to like use it to make the frame as pretty as possible. What I mean by that is like this is great like side by side comparison, and I wish I could credit the video, but it's just kind of in my endless playlist of Dune stuff. But they were comparing frames of the arrival of the Harkonnens and the sneak attack of the Emperor's what are they called? Sardaukar, yeah, on the Atreides forces, and just showing Josh Brolin running and massive explosions ballooning in the background, and that kind of obscuring his face, like he's thrown into darkness because of this enormous pop of light behind him. And side by side, rather unflatteringly, they're showing Black Widow from Black Widow 2021 like running with an explosion behind her, and she's clearly in a soundstage on a green screen. None of this is actually happening around her. She's got perfect, like very muted lighting on her face the whole time while these flames are engulfing her, and it just reminded me of how the visual language of cinema has become this kind of keep the star looking absolutely perfect while all hell is being created by the VFX team in the background. And the level of immersion in that versus this moment with the Atreides forces running out, you know, in the dead of the night to try and fight for their lives, like, just it ramps up the drama to a place where it perhaps always should have been. Like, we've forgotten what good cinematography looks like in a popcorn movie.
Well, I'd say
agree.
He comes from the same school of thought that I think Christopher Nolan comes from. Christopher Nolan, I think people say famously he doesn't use any CGI, but he does.
If you can do it in camera with a little bit of CGI assistance, do it in camera.
Yes, it assists the practical effects. It enhances it assists what he is filming more so than it is the actual focus of the shots that he's creating. Because obviously a lot of the subjects that he likes to explore is more fantastic, larger than life. And to get the perfect shots, if it works better in CGI than it does real action, then he will do it. But he really does like to just create a cinematic experience more than what a lot of blockbusters have become these days. It's just basically like a fun school ride. It's just like a ride that you're on instead of like an actual cinematic experience that you have.
And even if all of these terms go over one's head and you kind of go in with a kind of an ignorance of the process of filmmaking, your brain knows. Your brain knows what a lens should do when it's being blown out by a huge light and heat source in the frame. Like it just heightens the immersion in this world, and that just compounds with the fact that the soundscape is just amazing.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's like the cinema I was in was just like just reverberating your entire body. Some of the scenes, like the sound was loud and like bassy.
So I would suggest to anyone like go out and see this in cinema.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, if
IMAX,
this is something like if I can somehow steal 6 hours out of my day, they do a double feature. They're doing parts 1 and 2 together.
Oh, I wish we
Australia.
I would do that. I would totally do that. Sorry, you just mentioned something with the sound, and there's a piece of sound in that film, in the sound design in that film that I absolutely love. And it just shows that the people who worked on that film really appreciate the school of filmmaking. Like they care about the art of it, I'm not saying the Marvel people don't. We read a lot about how people who do effects and sound and everything for Marvel films often get rushed and put under pressure. Coming back to Dune, when he has to set up the thumper to call the sandworm, so that he can ride the sandworm.
Ride the worm.
That's always going to get a four out of me.
So he slides down. He slides down the dune, and the sound of the sand, the way it crunches, it's just so cool. And in the IMAX, in the cinema that I was in, the sound was just so good that it actually felt tactile. And that's good sound design. That's like really beautiful sound design, and because it's a subtle scene like that, but everything, the whole emphasis of everything is on that quiet moment. That building up, and that is very good sound design, and I love that, and I miss that in film, because right now a lot of sound design in film, and this is actually bad. I shouldn't let this get into this point where we're criticizing other movies now, but a lot of modern films sound design is a lot like dance music. It builds up it's got a build up and a crescendo, like it crashes on you and it's amazing and it's awesome, but it's always that. It's always that level. It's always like Spider-Man shouting his pants. Boom. Spider-Man jumping off the building. Boom. It's always that. It's never loud to quiet, subtle, introspective moments. I mean, it's always this bullshit, like in your face thing. I really hate what comic movies have done at the moment, because to add to what Steve was saying earlier, comic books, when we started reading comic books as a youngster, and I know for myself, as somebody who loved drawing stuff, every single character, every female character was hot. Every one of them. They were all good looking, all had like big hair, all had great bodies, all had like boobs, like that were just super massive all the time, all massive. Men were always chiseled, always had major pecs, everything, the whole vibe, everything was always there. And comic book films are kind of exactly that. It's again this kind of perfect free frame moment, and you kind of want comic book movies to kind of feel real and visceral. Anyway, let's get away from that conversation. Why do we love Dune so freaking much? Like Rob, I know Steve just said you used to watch the movie on tape every now and then, and you played the game. What got you into Dune? Were you ever into Dune before the movies came out?
I think probably, I would have seen the Dune movie with Steven once or twice. I don't think I ever saw it anywhere else. once again, also playing the video game. I think that was probably over at Alistair, Stephen's, our childhood friend's house, often watching his dad play Dune or us playing Dune. So those were kind of my experiences with Dune, and also some of the action figures. I think Stephen's brother had one or two of them.
Oh, cool. Neglected to mention, my brother had all of the LJN action figures. He had them
Wait,
all.
was it all of them? Holy shit, yeah. They had
the entire collection.
Baron
Harkonnen, Fade Ratha, Raban, Paul, Stilgar, and the Sardaukar.
Yeah,
that was a whole range of
cool experiences playing with those and integrating those into our playtime. So Dune has been a thing in my life, and I have probably about two or so decades ago, I did read the book, the first book in the whole series, and it was a very good experience. I mean, although it is one of those books where I think there's like a huge appendix at the end of the book, and he does kind of have you constantly flipping from wherever you are in the book to get to the back of the book to kind of like explain certain things, like what does this mean, and what are these terms, and what does this part of our society mean. So it's more kind of like almost like a study session while you're reading the book. At least that's what I remember the experience being.
I don't have that version of the book.
Well, maybe I'm misremembering that. That's what I'm saying. It's
no, I think you're 100% right. I just don't have that version.
Yeah. Okay, but it was in a library somewhere. So that's my experience with it. It felt very, I don't know. I'm not. I don't know what the word is. Like, it's kind of like college level, like interaction with the book. Where you're kind of like studying it.
Very academic.
Academic.
Kills your flow.
That word. Yeah, it kills your flow, but it's still an interesting book overall. I think it's a beautiful book. And yeah, that's kind of my experience with the Dune over time. And as I said, I didn't watch the first one. I thought it looked interesting. So I thought to come into this one fresh, not knowing anything. Or at least, just relying on what I remembered from the past. They don't build enough bases in this movie. That's all I'm saying. Not enough obvious going on in there. Very upsetting. They're destroying a lot of things, but not enough building of bases.
Yeah, not enough construction yards and wind traps.
Exactly.
So Dune is such a fascinating thing for me because my experience with Dune was the first time I ever saw anything about Dune was in the pages of a video game magazine, and it was the story bits from this Mega CD game, from the Sega CD game, and I was always like, what is this Dune thing? What is this Dune? Blah blah blah. And then I just happened to see the book somewhere. It was like at a secondhand bookstore or something, and like the cover that I saw was I think it was the old movie poster cover. It's like the black one with it was the black one with just the planets, and it's got like no sandworms, nothing. It's like no major motion picture, blah blah blah, that kind of vibe. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is Dune. It's like a sci-fi thing, maybe. I don't know, whatever's. And then I'd actually then go on to play the game on my computer that had no sound. So the only sound bites I always remember from Dune is worm sign detected. That's why I keep throwing it out of my mouth. But I played it on my computer, on PC, with no sound card for a long time, and enjoyed the heck out of that. And then I finally got my hands on the book because my friend's dad had it, and he was getting rid of a whole bunch of books, and he asked if we wanted any, and I was like, Dune. And then I read Dune, and I loved the hell out of Dune. I don't know why it just worked with me. Like, I just enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the way it was told. Rob, you're right. It does get very academic, but I just literally just glossed over stuff and very arrogantly as a young teenager was like, oh, fuck, I know what they're talking about, whatever. And then just pushed myself through, and it could get the general story beats and whatever's done and whatever. Because I had tried to read this other big book that everybody was into, was Lord of the Rings. And I could never get into Lord of the Rings. It's no fault of Tolkien's. I just don't enjoy Lord of the Rings. I just don't enjoy it. But I love Dune. So I've always been on the Dune side of the camp. And believe it or not, I only saw Lynch's film in my 20s.
Fantasy, like sword and sandal, dragon and magic fantasy doesn't do it for me. I need the added dimension of science
machinery.
Fiction. Yeah, spaceships, space travel, distant planets,
space magic.
Like Blame
That's
Star Wars.
Your fantasy. Yeah. I like both. I try to read, but yeah, the movies I enjoyed, Lord of the Rings. The book though is very dry. I was like,
it's weird. that's cool. Like, I mean, everybody's got their own thing. What's it? I just clicked with the book. It just worked for me.
Sure.
But guys, I love, like, Dune has been a huge influence for me, and that's why I love these movies, the first and the second one, so much. And I want to speak about the second one in that, I mean, that's what we're speaking about. I love that.
Say your word.
I love that this film does everything it can to make you, as an audience, get behind Paul Atreides. It does a lot, and it still gives you things to doubt him, and you still go, "Oh, but he's such a good guy." You know, I've got his back. He's cool, but he's not a bastard. I don't want to say he's a bastard, but he knows what's coming. You don't. We as an audience still don't really know what's coming. And now, with a few things that they've done in the film, even those of us that have read the books and know the lore, we also still don't know what's coming. The only person who knows what's coming is Paul Atreides. And that's a really, really cool sense throughout that they give you throughout the whole film. This whole, like, main character that you're not entirely sure you should be following. And then you celebrate his victories. You're like, yeah, kick him, like, stab that dude. And then you just, wait, hold on. What's this in service of? I mean, when he kills Fade, for example, you're like, okay. Yeah, no, that was probably, like, a service to you know, living.
Yeah, he is a bit of an
I suppose. Fade's terrible. Fade is a horrible piece of shit. But he's exactly Paul. He's exactly the same as Paul. The only difference with Fade is he's more honest about what he is. Yeah, and a very interesting. And a very interesting thing that they kind of make quite a big thing about in the film is when Fade does the Gom Jabbar, does the Gom Jabbar that. But when he does the test, they talk about how he actually enjoys the pain. And, you know, you guys know that, like, for example, Paul screams in pain. He endures the pain, but he hates pain. And it's kind of a cool thing because often when people hate painful situations, they try everything they can do to avoid painful situations. And often that causes conflict and it often causes huge issues. And I'm going to quote a Marvel film here, but I'm going to poorly misquote a Marvel film here. But when Captain America mentions that whole thing in Civil War about trying to stop a war before it happens, it's like often like the worst thing in the world. You guys know what I'm talking about. I'm misquoting it. He warns Tony Stark about that. That's exactly what I think that Dune is trying to tell with that situation with Paul, is that doing everything he can to try and necessarily be the good person and try to spare people from as much pain as possible is actually what's going to cause a lot of issues. And it ultimately does in his own life. The fallout happens in his own life with Shani. And that is awesome to see. I love also seeing that there's a consequence to his behavior on a personality level. Like the people closest to him.
But it's a consequence that he's willing to accept because he can see the future now. So he's like, this is the only path forward, and there are sacrifices that I have to make to be able to go along, as you know, Darren says, the shining path.
The guy, or the golden path. Love that song from the Chemical Brothers, by the way.
If your only point of reference was the David Lynch film, you would be forgiven for not even knowing who Shani was. Like, that was my big point of, I was like,
tell me if your homeworld was so...
Zendaya's got big billing in this film for a character that I'm completely unfamiliar with. And I'm like, oh, it's Paul's girlfriend. Wow. That was missing from the Kyle
She's
MacLachlan
not just Sean Young
performance. Yeah, no, she was blink and you miss it in that film. I mean, it was just a brutally hacked down movie. It was, to date, Dave Lynch's only film that he didn't have final cut on. The studio demanded that they get it down to an hour and a half. Well, no, 217 minutes. Yeah,
about 2 hours. And that happened to him twice on that movie. Because they cut it down for the cinematic experience, and then they added scenes back in for the TV version.
Final cut.
And the TV version was so bad that he actually wanted his name completely removed from the movie.
Poor guy.
And also,
he learned an important lesson out of it and has gone on to do incredible work since in his style.
There's a cool version. This is not a cool version. this is an interesting version of Dune, which I think is only available on DVD. I don't think you'll find the Blu-ray of it. If you're the kind of person who enjoys Lynch's films, even his failures, and you enjoy Dune's failures and misgivings, there's a very extended cut of David Lynch's Dune film that's even got a still shot in the beginning with a bit of an opening of story, of writing that you have to read before Princess Irulan comes in and goes, no, that is the year.
That's wild. That's almost too much.
10-1-2-1, whatever. It is too much. And there's a lot of footage
vertically.
Yes. And it's got this beautiful, like, guys, do not knock the Toto score.
Williams.
If there's one thing that you cannot dislike about Lynch's film, is that freaking score is beautiful. I love that score. It is so of its
That's
time.
something they definitely got right in both of these interpretations.
Dune. I love it so much. But coming back to like the modern films, yes, Steve, exactly, 100%. Shani's a character. Irulan is actually a character. She's not just in the background.
Like
she was in the Lynch film. Which I always thought was such an offensive thing to do to these characters, because the women of Dune are actually very important in Dune, in the storytelling.
No, very much so.
And this,
there's prominent roles in the society or in the Dune universe for women. Absolutely.
Got some questions though, and I mean, let's not say that this is a faultless movie. There are things that damaged my suspension of disbelief at times.
Is that the humor, dude?
The big elephant in the room for me was the place of Christopher Walken as the Emperor. Now, it's difficult to not see, Shaddam 3 or whatever.
Shaddam 4th, yeah.
4th, whatever.
Sorry, it doesn't matter, sorry.
It's so difficult to look past Christopher Walken and see any other character other than Christopher Walken, you know? So it was miscast by getting, Hollywood royalty for me, like, it's just use someone a little bit perhaps more anonymous, like Stellan Skarsgård, completely transformative as Baron Harkonnen. Maybe it's because he was always, Scandinavian and weird to begin with, but like Christopher Walken has got such a recognizable brand.
Well, like, it's true. I saw someone on Twitter. They were like he probably, his direction to Christopher Walken the entire movie was basically, don't be yourself. Please don't speak the way that you normally do. Can you just say the lines this way and do not say them the way you would normally do?
I'm going to challenge that and say he probably
on my planet.
He probably didn't want to challenge Christopher Walken on anything because he knew that there was one moment which would almost redeem the whole thing, and that's the fact that you've got an absolute legend of an actor from a bygone era bowing down and kissing the ring of Timothée Chalamet, who like, that man will look like a weeb for the rest of his life. He'll be 70 years old and he'll still look like a childlike.
Weeb?
He's such a boy presence, and to have someone of such reverence bow down and kiss, like, I felt like, whoa, you shouldn't be doing that.
Which is why I love his casting, by the way, for Muad'Dib.
So that moment really worked for me, but the rest of the time I was like, oh, come on, he's walking all over this role. Florence Pugh even adapted her accent to have an American accent in order to kind of mesh better with her dad.
But I mean, I would say he doesn't sound like himself for most of the film. He doesn't have that intonation, the cadence that he normally has. But it is difficult to kind of remove that from your own mind because you are used to him sounding like that and being in anything else sounding like himself. So I probably agree that it is difficult to look past him as being Christopher Walken. Yeah, I'd agree.
I think it's also worth mentioning that Christopher Walken is actually an Oscar winner.
I know for sure. He won lots of Oscars.
And he didn't get that Oscar by being Christopher Walken.
No, just for Deer Hunter. Yeah.
I assume.
So, okay, cool.
Correct
actually,
comments.
my issue is this. Well, I have an issue in the same space of characters. I love Florence Pugh, but I don't necessarily love her Irulan.
Oh.
I feel like she didn't really give Irulan the gravitas she deserves. Let me put it this way. Irulan is a character that comes across as incredibly naive, but is actually not because of her training. And so I didn't feel that her character came across that way in the film. I always felt that like she was the second in command. I always felt that she was like Helen Mohim's like second in command, which is what she is actually, but she always came across that way to me. And I didn't like that because I felt like they did such a good job with other characters deceiving the audience that Irulan should have been one of those characters that deceives the audience. In fact, the character who does that very well in my eyes is actually, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but it's the woman who goes to do the test on Fade.
Florence.
To do.
Yeah, something.
Chloe. Chloe. She was in Death Stranding.
Yes,
she was
also
James
in
Bond.
Mission Impossible. Yeah, and in Mission Impossible.
Bond.
But like, I thought her character was very good at that because she comes across as very likable, and then she's not.
Well, I know she's not. Yeah, she seemed naive to me, but she, there's kind of like there's a degree of not control, but she doesn't seem intimidating in any way, I think.
Yes, do.
Yes, there we go. Got it. I was gonna search it too, but I was like, nah.
I also feel like the costume design always makes it very constrained. So I feel maybe we're gonna get the full brunt of that character in Messiah.
Yeah, you can't move your head much when you got a doily on top.
Yeah, and then like a metal thing on your head, you can't do anything.
But that's the whole thing. She's very like confined, and I think that like there's a visual language there that's trying to kind of say that like she's confined by two different sides. She's confined by her Bene Gesserit side, and she's confined by the Empress side. And there's lots of elements to both of those things because she is kind of trapped between two of them. I mean, she keeps secrets from her father, which does bug her. But the film doesn't really give you that. You just assume that might be the case, So so her character was a little bit like, I feel poorly characterized for me. That was one thing I didn't like. I know there's some people who talk about like Paul's son or Paul's kid, Paul and Shani's kid. I'm happy he wasn't in the film. What an irritating thing to deal with in a film like that. I'm sorry. Like, I think in the book it's fine because it does share a level of trauma and tragedy for the character and does motivate things and whatever. But this whole film is like both of these movies have been so like romantic that to have something like that is just it's going to irritate the pace of the film. So I have no issue with that being out there. I have a real concern with the ending, though. So if you guys, for those of you listening who don't want to spoil, it's going to happen.
Yeah, Ben, if this isn't being spoilery enough for you,
it's pretty spoilery.
Go watch it right now.
I don't love that Alia. I don't like that Alia doesn't kill the Baron. That actually bugs me.
From inside the womb.
Yeah.
Or at voice.
Least, well, I think she could have been born. I know that would have also been like one of those like pace stealing things, and I get it, but I just feel like because there's a reason, like it's cool, like, and I don't want to talk about stuff that comes out later, but it is like her claim to fame, So I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, and it's just an awesome thing that she does. It's amazing that she's a child and she literally kills it. She stabs him. It's amazing.
Yeah. But it feels like, someone did point out to me with the better knowledge of the book than I have currently that, by this point in the story, his sister had already been born and she was a young child.
Yes.
But they've obviously pushed that back to kind of to be more of a bigger thing in the third film. And I think, you have enough cast members going on in this movie where you kind of like reduce the action, or at least the people taking action in this movie, so that you don't have so much conflict. Well, not conflict, so many different people doing stuff. Like it's very much Paul's story. He's the person that kind of like moves certain things forward. and he's the one that kind of like takes that action in that moment.
I think narratively it's more satisfying for Paul to avenge his father directly.
Yeah, it makes more sense
than to have a newborn child kill the leader of the Harkonnens, which is kind of arbitrary and very sinister. So you lose that.
Not necessarily so, but yeah.
I'm okay with the trade-off.
I'm very amused by a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Worms being used as like basically your subway, your mass transit system.
They just like go anywhere with those things.
Well, it begs the question: how do the Fremen move from one side of the planet to the other, or one hemisphere to the other? Well, they load up their worms. That just to use them as beasts of burden, it got a smile out of me. Like, do they how do they get them to stop and then like load that little tent
12 a.m.
onto the top so they
today.
can, the Reverend Mother, Paul's mother.
I suppose
she's
I don't know
with child and she's being taken on a fucking worm.
I suppose it depends on where they get it to come out of the sand. Like they put the thing over here, it comes out over here, and it kind of like picks her up as they go along.
And I also chuckled when, like, the end of the film, Paul has murdered Baron Harkonnen and his heir, and now has gotten, the Emperor of the Universe to
bow to
him, and acknowledge fealty or show fealty or whatever. And none of the other houses acknowledge this as legal succession. And they're all like, okay, now it's war. So Paul sends, what does he do? Like, he loads up all the Fremen. They're like, yeah, we're going to go fight this war for you, man. We're going off to space now. This tribe of, they're desert fighters. They're very good, at a sort of a land battle, like hit and run.
You send these troop transports into space against basically like space star destroyers, essentially.
I mean, you don't have to look far to find a real-world example of this. Like, when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, and all of a sudden you had the Taliban guys riding Black Hawks and American military vehicles, Humvees and whatnot. It's like, now, send these guys off to the United States and wage war.
They're going to take on over.
But the difference is that Muad'Dib is not the Taliban. Well, the Fremen are not the Taliban. That's the difference. Like, they're not.
Yeah, but they kind of are portrayed.
They're like a million.
It's a lot of
it's
people,
like
but still, it's millions of troop transports going up against star destroyers, essentially. Unless you're fighting land battles.
Not in Dune.
I'm curious to see
Dune doesn't work like that.
3.
There's no space combat.
I'm sure there isn't, but it feels like. I mean, if you have no knowledge of the greater universe, it's just like he's sending them off because he's literally just established that all the houses.
Who hasn't got a knowledge of the greater universe?
Well, I'm saying the audience. Stephen,
the audience,
yes, but the audience as well. Like when you see this, they've established, the great houses have their ships in orbit. They're not going to accept your whatever. Cool, then we're going to send up these troop transports to go and kill the people that are in space orbiting the planet currently. It's like you would assume that the ships would be equipped with whatever limited knowledge you have of general space combat, Star Wars, as it were. It is kind of funny, actually, where you do these guys run into the little things and like, let's go, guys, woo!
Go, still go. Javier Bardem's performance is a delight, though. He's amazing.
Oh, he's so fantastic.
I believe lovely. The invented language that they created for this film, he is so fluent in it that he can improvise in it.
Wow. Oh, for real? Wow.
So coming back to Alia, my major
he's so cool. He really is the guy. Him.
No, he was such a hype man. I love that.
He must be the guy.
He's like the number one dude. He's like the dude that's just he's the one who writes all the songs and does all that stuff. What is interesting is like with Alia, like the reason I bring that up is because how do I say this without spoiling anything? Alia is bad. Okay, but that's like the most unspoilery thing I can say. And now I'm worried that the Messiah is going to go, and because of also, let's not ignore the fact that we live in today's times, that there are some sensitivities. So to have a character like her that happens to be a female character, and she is literally bad, and then goes into the next film being who she is, and as influential as she is.
Dangerously close to spoiler territory. And this guy,
I don't want to say. That's why I don't want to say anything more. I'm just worried about that. You guys mentioned the whole Fremen getting onto the ships and doing their whole thing. That whole bit there is completely different to how it is in the books. And this is not meant to be like, oh, it's different for the books, whatever. I feel like for a film narrative, it does make sense, but I am worried about the greater narrative of what they're trying to tell.
Yeah, look, if Dune Part 3 doesn't open the same way Star Wars Episode 3 opens with a massive space battle, I'm walking out of the cinema, man. I'm done. I'm done with this fucking franchise.
You guys said it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. I'll leave that. Like I'm like holding back. I don't want to say anything, but like,
well, I do like the fact that between Part 1 and Part 2, there's 0 time lapse.
Yes,
it is made to be one movie, and that's amazing. He didn't know he was going to get a chance to make Part 2 when he was making Part 1. He was like, fingers crossed. But the fact that it opens right on the hot on the heels of Part 1, lovely. It's going to make this an incredible cinematic experience.
But I feel like
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, although it feels like Part 3 has to take place a little bit later. Like, I don't know what to me at least.
The birth of a child.
The child is to be born because he has those visions of his sister in his dreams in the movie. And it feels like there has to be a certain degree of progress.
Scene though first, like just like they did. Like there was plenty of passage of time in Part 2, in the runtime of the film, in the body of the film, but in the beginning.
So you're saying you want the next scene in the next movie to be like, so it's the next scene just comes right on the heels of this one. Well, this is me not having watched the first movie. That's why I wanted it previously on.
Yeah, damn.
Okay.
Also,
Need it.
I've seen, you know when the film starts and you hear that, and then it like gives you like some kind of like moral, in the beginning. And I've seen like, listen, and I mean, I could be totally wrong here. But from some YouTube stuff that I've been watching, like Screen Crush and Heavy Spoilers and stuff, they always go like, that's the Sardaukar, and it's not. That's the Spacing Guild. And that's something that we haven't seen come into play in the story at all, and they do exist in the story because they do allude to them. They do allude to them being there, and I'm a little bit sad that we didn't see more Spacing Guild.
Something that the film doesn't answer, so this is something that I wish, paradoxically, I need to read the book to get the answer to this. But why doesn't the Spacing Guild, because they're so powerful and so wealthy, why don't they take over the mining of spice?
Okay.
No, don't answer it.
No,
that's just a question that I had.
Question in his head.
But the film doesn't adequately answer. Like, why?
There's obviously politics going on there that
one of the great houses at all.
Of.
Yeah. Are they afraid of getting their hands dirty? I mean, they're the ones that need the spice more than anyone else.
It's trickier than that. So I'm hoping that we'll get that answer in Messiah.
Gents, I'm afraid I'm going to turn into a pumpkin any minute now because.
Well, before we leave, I wasn't aware of this.
You're welcome
to
keep talking.
No. I need to go to bed as well. But apparently, there's a Iron Maiden song called "To Tame a Land," which is literally the story of Dune in 6 minutes. I was not aware of this, and I'm definitely going to go have a listen to it. Maybe this will help clear up your concerns, Stephen. It's going to answer all your questions. 6 minutes or less.
Certainly easier than watching 6,000 years. Well, I was going to say 6,000 years of like conflict in the Middle East.
So true.
But that's the cool thing, because this film is in a lot of ways a precursor to all of that nonsense. And it was actually like not the film, the book was a precursor to that. It was in a lot of ways like him trying to warn people about that. And I think we need to remember that. I think we need to also remember, like, today, in today's world, this film's important, and it's important because it reminds us not to worship people, not to worship celebrities, not to worship inspirational leaders, writers, presidents, whatever. Because Luke Skywalker, I mean, but that's the cool thing. Luke Skywalker doesn't want you to worship him either. But the whole joke is like that's what this film's about. It's very much about how demigods are bad and why they're bad and why we as people need to take responsibility for ourselves and for our destinies and for what we do. And Shani is a really good representation of that in this film because she's very much like, no. And I love that she's persistent about we are living their prophecy. It's their thing, you know, not ours. It's not a thing, you know. I love that because that's a very, very good message that literally separates this film from the David Lynch film. Because the David Lynch film was all like, oh, he will know it as if he's the chosen one. Meanwhile, fucking Paul's a mentat. He studied all of that shit before he landed on Arrakis. All of it. Like he's a human. He's a mentat. I don't know. Like that's something in the film they never really get at. But he's a mentat. He's a living computer.
He doesn't schnarf coke. I mean,
spice. No, but he does. He's eating it in the food that he. That's why his eyes turned slowly blue throughout the course of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't that clear in the beginning of the film that he was doing the spice.
I think over time in this movie, where he starts talking about the
but Paul's talking about him being a mentat from
they don't mention that.
Mentat don't need spice, dude. They don't need spice. No, they don't.
That's why they stain.
Their lips are stained, yeah. But Paul hasn't gone through that. He hasn't become. He hasn't been converted. If you know what I mean. He's still just
as our resident.
He's a mentat. He hasn't become.
Dune scholar is telling you, Paul. Yeah. He's training to be.
There we go. Yeah, he's not a Mac yet. He's training to be a Mac.
But I think it is a fantastic message to end on. Take control of your own destiny, guys.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do spice.
Yeah, walk without rhythm, and you won't attract the worm.
Yo, Joe. Dune.
You can do that.